What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hooked on Fantasy. It's been a minute, but Akash and I are back. Today we have the Midseason Fantasy Award Show, which should be fun, and a bit of the rest of season prediction that Akash has whipped up for us. So, Akash, how you doing? Looking handsome as ever.
Thank you. You too. I'm doing great. I've been just relaxing.
Just relaxing?
Excited to get back on Hooked on Fantasy. Last few weeks have been they've been busy for me. They've been busy for you too. Life as a college student can get tough sometimes, man.
For sure. Yeah, life doesn't get any tougher than college. That's what they always say, right?
Yeah. I hope that's true.
Yeah, it definitely is true. There's no way life gets any harder. But anyway, I don't really know what else we want to talk about before we jump in. Is there any news or anything you want to talk about real quick?
Not really. Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's interesting.
Yeah, that's obviously big news. It's potentially season ending. He just went on IR for 3 games minimum, right? They haven't said his season's over, but it's probably season ending, right?
Yeah, I think someone on Twitter I saw said about 8 weeks is the time frame.
Yeah, 6 to 8, which keeps him out for the majority. If you're lucky, he comes back for the fantasy playoffs, and then maybe he's viable. I haven't talked to any or seen any content from any doctors or PTs on how effective he'll be upon immediately after his return from this injury. But if you have enough space, he's worth a stash. But if you really have no space, you can maybe. He's such a high upside player that maybe you don't drop him. Maybe you drop some lower upside players. But
I'm not dropping him yet until the news fully comes out on a timetable for his injury. I agree. Drop him next week, but for now I'm gonna hold on because if he does come back for let's say the last game of the season for some reason, or 17 or 16, you can still very much use him for the playoffs.
Exactly, yeah. And he always, I don't know his schedule, but he always ends up playing a couple of the terrible AFC South teams in the playoffs and scores 30 fantasy points. It's just tradition at this point.
Yeah, basically. All right. Why don't we just get into the fantasy awards show? I guess. Why don't we? So the first mid-season fantasy award will be for fantasy MVP most valuable player. I think this one's a pretty easy one in my opinion. He's currently, depending on your scoring settings, the number 1 or number 2 overall fantasy asset in PPR leagues. It's Cooper Kupp for me. I assume it's the same for you.
Yeah, he's just been insane. The production relative to wide receivers is absolutely insane. He's 5 points per game higher than wide receiver 2, who I believe is Jamar Chase.
I didn't even look. He's just
stripping everyone to the point where his production competes with majority of quarterbacks, and he just
it doesn't compete. It beats damn near every quarterback except for Josh Allen in some scoring settings.
Right. So yeah, I think that's the fantasy MVP so far.
He's got to be. He was such a value, What was he going in, round 4?
Yeah, imagine if you picked a guy like Ayuk over Kupp. It'd be insane.
Bro. Several people did, I bet.
Definitely.
It's terrible. Let's move into the second one, I guess. Best value pick. For me, I've said Jamar Chase. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I got to agree with that one. And then there's some other values. There've been a lot of good values. You could also say Cooper Kupp just because the production's insane, and then some other wide receivers like Debo, Mike Williams, some running backs went pretty late or undrafted like Elijah Mitchell. I know Mitchell got drafted in a lot of really deep redraft leagues and dynasty leagues, but also Jalen Hurts.
Hurts has been great. Yeah, you could argue for best.
He was going QB 8 to 10. Now he's QB 2.
Mm-hmm. Dude, it's crazy that he's outscoring Kyler Murray. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
It is crazy. They both offer similar but different things. Also,
I'm really happy to see Jalen Hurts winning, though. For a quick sidebar, there were so many people out there that was oh, no, he's a bad quarterback. He's going to get benched for Gardner Minshew.
Not this year. No. Eventually, yeah.
No, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Will. Will, do you have any thoughts on Jalen Hurts?
Plays football for the Eagles.
Thank you, Will. He said he plays football for the Eagles. Thank you so much. All right, Jacob in the comments is saying that Patterson's the best value. Most people got him on waivers.
Cordell
Patterson. I think
they have an award for best waiver pick up.
I-
Or something.
I
Or
have-
we should at least.
I have him down for another category later that we'll get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
He
think
hasn't been drafted though. We can't like. It's hard to consider him like a draft value if he wasn't drafted. Otherwise, he'd be right there.
Yeah, I mean that's what you were kind of saying about Elijah Mitchell though too. Like
Yeah.
he's such a value, but at the same time, like I think I said best value pick, so I said Jamar because
Right.
he was in those late middle rounds, right next to like Devonta Smith, who hasn't done that much unfortunately. But Jamar's been tearing it up. I really think that Jamar is having like what Justin Jefferson did last season, pretty much identically, and I think that Devonta Smith feels a lot like what Jerry Jeudy did last year.
Yeah. Huh. I wonder if anyone said that at the beginning of the season. Odd.
Did I say that?
Huh?
Did I say that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. That's
I
kind
didn't
of
expect Justin Jefferson season from Chase just because like it felt unrealistic, even though it's happening right now. At the time, it felt unrealistic, but before the season, I was like, yeah, I think you're gonna see some like Jerry Jeudy level production from Devonta Smith. I mean, they're aligning on so many things. They have like a target share just above 20%. They have some good games, some bad games, bad QB play. Both betas from Alabama. It's encouraging signs.
He's not a beta one. No.
They have encouraging signs. Like just looking price agnostic, they have encouraging signs, but it's not. You're probably not going to have amazing production this year.
No, I mean, what I really expected going into the year was a CeeDee Lamb kind of rookie season from Jamar Chase and the Jerry Jeudy kind of season for Devonta Smith. And that's kind of what we're seeing, but Jamar just smashed expectations.
Yeah, Jamar, like if you're looking at like expected points per game, Jamar's probably closer to CeeDee than he is Jefferson, but he's just been so like efficient and like overproductive that he is like top 5 wide receiver right now. Yeah, I think he's like wide receiver 2 in points. So
yeah, he's absolutely crushing so far. Moving into disappointments, biggest bust for me, I think it's got to be Allen Robinson. I mean, everyone thought he was like a locked and loaded stud, like wide receiver 1 to high and light wide receiver 2, and he's been like unplayable. It's been crazy how bad he's been.
Yeah. For also consider Ayuk. It's still like 2 different reasons they've busted. Like everyone expected Allen Robinson to be like a super safe wide receiver 1 just because of the history of production, and then everyone expected a big breakout from Ayuk. And like Allen Robinson, like he hasn't been terrible. He's just been relatively mediocre based on what we've seen in the past, and then he's being killed by the overall passing volume. So that sucks for him, and he's just been like he's not been terrible, but he hasn't been like good. So you can't exactly drop him. I wouldn't drop him. And I just had some got through some issues at the beginning of the season that caused him not to get on the field, not earn as many targets while he's on the field. It's just he had a good game last week though. So
yeah, I'm hopeful that through the next offseason he gets a good training camp in and kind of establishes his role again. But this year, excuse me, this year it's been pretty bleak for him. He almost got a touchdown yesterday. I made a joke on Twitter that he got in the end zone finally, but it was a 2-point conversion. But it's nice to see him be used a little bit though. I mean, last week in prime time we kind of saw him die before our very eyes. This week he actually saw some decent usage, which is exciting.
He ran 95% of the routes, which is terrific. It's just that's what we expected going into the year, for him to be on the field like almost all the time, instead of like at the beginning of the season he was on the field like half the time, and it was like 70 as we went throughout the year, and he was coming off the field for Mohamed Sanu, Trent Sherfield, and it was just weird. It was just weird usage. But if he's on the field consistently, I don't see why. I don't see any reason he can't bounce back.
Akash, I want your opinion on Allen Robinson falling off. Do you think it's a mix of talent and quarterback situation, or do you think it all falls on quarterback play?
I don't think that it's anything to do with the talent. I do think there's some I don't know. There's definitely something affecting his per route or per play, not efficiency, but like ability to earn targets. His target share and targets per route run isn't as good as previous years, but I don't think he suddenly became bad in the prime of his career at the age of 28. I don't think he's suddenly bad. I just think that, I don't know. There's definitely some QB issues, volume issues, maybe some Allen Robinson issues, but I would bet on him still being a talented player and that's a kind of bet that I'll make to bounce back in the long run. If he's a free agent at the end of the year, so at the very worst, I think he bounces back.
Will's asking, what about Matt Nagy issues? Do you think it's mostly usage and coaching, or do you think that's more?
Well, Nagy stopped calling plays like after week 3, right? So if it wasn't Nagy thing, you'd see him bounce back, I guess. But I would bet on the talent to bounce back at the very worst next year, and potentially as we go throughout the season. Because
we have a comment from Jacob in the chat again. What's up, Jacob? Appreciate you, man. He's an awesome follower and follow on Twitter. He's very active. Jacob Williams, I have a feeling Allen Robinson and Justin Fields' success are both tied directly to the protections and the coaching. Offensive line protection schemes has definitely been an issue for Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously less time in the pocket, less time to look downfield for guys like A-Rob, who are known to be a good go up and get it vertical threat kind of guy. It definitely will probably impact their scheme. I honestly just want to know what's going on. Like, I would love to be inside that coaching staff and like inside their game plan meetings and like hear what they're saying about Allen Robinson, like their supposed star wide receiver, who's not really got it going yet. It's very interesting to me.
I know. How easy would it be to analyze stuff if you could just look inside some players' heads?
Bro, it's crazy. Okay, like actually, I know it's just a TV show, but watching Hard Knocks every year is always giving me like little bits of info that I think are very useful.
Yeah, like I remember people jumped on the Darren Waller train just because of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, exactly. They had a whole segment where they went around camp. It was like, who's the player that like is balling out this season that you think that no one's expecting? Everyone was like Darren Waller.
Right. I can't think of any of those examples for like the last 2 seasons, but the Darren Waller.
There wasn't really one this year. They gave a lot of hype to Micah Parsons.
Who?
They gave a lot of hype to Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons in the Cowboys.
And then like the under the radar guy they talked about was Basham. It was just a lot of like focusing on like the defense getting better because that was the big problem last year. Everyone knew the offense was going to be pretty good, and then it is. And then also Dak's injury.
And Dak's injury was also a big storyline. I actually got on the Herbert bandwagon last year from the Chargers and Rams Hard Knocks kind of thing. I also fell in love with Van Jefferson, but they didn't use him last year.
I know. I was I didn't look at like rookies the same way I do this year or like over this offseason. So I was also like, hey, look at Van Jefferson making plays in camp. And maybe I could look at him as like a sleeper, and they didn't do anything. And then like in hindsight, I looked at his college profile. I'm like, wow, this is absolutely horrendous. I think Tutu Atwell should be their third receiver, and then Van Jefferson's the guy, and now Tutu's on IR. So
he's developed really well. To give some credit to Van, like he looks really good this year.
Anytime you can develop a underproductive 25-year-old rookie, you absolutely have to take that.
Absolutely. Any opportunity. All right, we have another comment from Jacob here while we were still talking about the Bears. He says that offense has 0 threats. It's just too easy for defenses to take away a single threat. When Montgomery is back and gets to play with Fields, maybe it'll be a bit better. I mean, I definitely can agree with that. I think that's
what it was in the past, right?
What do you say?
That's what it was in the past. And the offense was still successful, right? Same offense, same Allen Robinson's the guy, and when Anthony Miller was their wide receiver too, he wasn't doing much. And then when Monty was not playing as well in like early 2020 and 2019, it was he wasn't much of a threat. So I don't think that's
a sneaky threat that they had last year that hasn't. Is he even on the team? Jimmy Graham. He was really good for them.
Yeah, he's on the team. He just he's just on the field.
Is he finally walked?
I mean, I think they're making the right decision in going with Komet, who's on the field a lot more, and he's earning targets well. He just I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I really do think that the Allen Robinson and Brandon Ayuk situations are two of the most intriguing storylines of the season so far, because I mean everyone was just kind of I feel like they were both considered pretty safe players, especially A-Rob. I mean there was a bit of risk associated with Ayuk in my opinion, because I know you were huge on him, but I was a little concerned to see how him, Debo, and Kittle were all going to function at the same time. But I still liked him. I honestly didn't draft much of him at all. I don't think I have any shares of him at redraft, fortunately for myself, because I preferred some other players around that price range, like Deontay. Yeah, I had a much preferred like Deontay Johnson in that range. But
yeah, I have a lot of Deontay when I pivoted from Ayuk. One of the things I have this one like zero RB team, like where I waited until like the 8th or 9th round to grab my first RB. I at the beginning I felt like I absolutely killed the first few rounds. I got like Adams, Hopkins, Evans, and then I grabbed Allen Robinson and Ayuk, and those two picks are absolutely killing my team. When I hit like later rounds, I hit on Connor's doing well, Moss is doing pretty well.
Do you know off the top of your head who's? Oh, actually, just let me look.
I got Chuba off waivers. I got Alex Collins filling in well. It's just keep rotating RB2s, but I'm getting killed in my last wide receiver slot where I'm benching both those guys for Jacoby Myers every week.
That's tough, man. That's tough. I'm trying to look up real quick. Okay, so that's interesting. I was looking coming out of the draft process. I did prefer James Conner at his price over Chase Edmonds. Yeah. Currently, Edmonds is the RB17 on the season, and James Conner's
like 22. What is 21. It? Yeah,
21 in PPR.
Makes sense.
That's interesting.
I do think going forward, there's reason to like Edmonds more, just because it's a lot easier to bank on target share than it is touchdowns. But Conner is the guy in the red zone on a very good offense, and so as long as Kyler is good and this offense like moves well, I think Conner will be fine. I mean.
No, I definitely agree. I think
they're both solid RB2s. They take away the ceiling from each other. Obviously, Connor's going to be more touchdown dependent. I made a joke like, is Conner touchdown dependent or is he touchdown prone? It's just really a function of a hell of a lot of red zone carries.
Yeah, how many touchdowns does he have?
8.
8?
I believe so.
He has.
He's tied for second, only behind Derrick Henry, who's now out for 2 weeks. Imagine if James Conner has like 600 rushing yards and ends up leading the league in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, he has 8 touchdowns right now. He only has 3.8 yards a carry, but I mean, he has a lot of goal line work, so that makes sense.
Yeah, the goal line work will always lower your yards per carry just because there's not much room to go. But he's doing pretty well. It's not like he's not washed or anything. He's just not seeing the volume. Like he was never like overly. He's a good running back.
I think he's a very decent running back who can do a little bit of everything, but he's not special at anything. He needs a good.
Exactly. It takes not everyone can just like fill in and see like 200 carries and like 70 targets and be a top 8 RB like Conner was in his breakout season. And it's just like not everyone could do that. So he's definitely not like a bum who fell into opportunity, but it's not like he's top 15 talent or anything. He's just a pretty good running back who sees carries in the red zone. That'll work.
I mean, yeah, it gets the job done. That's why I like him more at his draft cost. But moving on to our next topic, we spent a lot of time on that one. Biggest surprise. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can interpret this question, but
bad surprise, good surprise. I'm surprised by Ayuk's I don't know, downfall, slow start, whatever you want to call it. Cordell Patterson, I know that's your pick. Patterson's utilization it's a fantasy dream because it's like imagine if like
this is fantasy nightmare,
right? Imagine if you had like a really cheap version of Alvin Kamara, except he lines up at wide receiver a lot more.
Dude, I think Cordell Patterson, what he's doing right now, is what I think in a perfect world, what the Jaguars should do with Laviska Shenault. I don't know if that's controversial, but I think that's what the Jaguars should do with Laviska Shenault, is what they're doing with Cordell Patterson right now. It's the Swiss Army knife skill set, and I love it. I think it's great.
I don't think Visca's like as physically gifted as
he's
Patterson,
not. But he has a little bit of that in him, is what I mean.
Using him like that would definitely be better than like not using him like they are now. And I don't know, using Jamal Agnew in the slot, which I think is wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, Jacob has another good point here. I think he's a little bit behind, like you mentioned earlier. But James Conner looked really good when he filled in for Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh because he had the best situation possible with the peak Steelers offensive line when they were top 3 in the league. And I totally agree. Right now.
Is that light?
Gross.
Is he right about the boxes being super light? Quick fact check this real quick.
Wait, sorry, what did you say?
Is he right about the small boxes?
Back then or now?
Back then. This is 2018, right?
Yeah, I mean they're definitely small boxes because you had to deal with Antonio Brown.
He was 12th in average defenders in the box. He was getting it done. He's a good power back who's he faced a lot of defenders in the back. They were respecting him.
Yeah, I mean,
even back then he was like third. He was second in goal line carries, and then he had like he was like 15th or like 16th in target share, and that'll lead to RB1 production.
That'll lead to good things. Yeah, I mean, he was really good that season. I thought bright things were ahead, but once that offensive line started to get a little old and start to fall apart, the run blocking was getting a lot worse. Connor definitely fell off quickly.
I know.
He looked really bad the Steelers' run game from last season to now with Najee is like night and day. We actually have someone.
They were doing a lot better when Connor was healthy. It's just some injuries got to him at the end of the season. We had to. And then the team.
That was another thing with Connor that he couldn't stay healthy. It was not good. Gosh, I know you weren't. I don't know how much of a fan you are of Najee still, but I know you were not really a fan of his going into the season. How do you feel about him now? I mean, I know he gets a lot of the passing work, and that's what makes him.
Yeah, for fantasy, he's fine.
But like running wise, do you think he's been good or no?
What? Running wise, I don't.
Running back, do you think he's been doing a good job?
As a running back, I don't think so. I think he's been okay. I haven't checked in on like his like yards created or like juke rate in the last few weeks. I haven't looked at it, but
the line's getting a lot better. I can say that. I don't know if you saw
that.
I was watching the Browns game the other day and the Broncos game a couple weeks ago. They've been running the ball well. Like the offensive line the first couple weeks, I was very concerned because pretty much all of his efficiency was coming in the passing game. Yesterday against Cleveland, I think he had like 90 on the ground and a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he still had like 20-something carries, which is ridiculous. But
26, right?
Yeah, he had a ton of attempts. But, I mean, the blocks are actually opening up a little bit now. Like, they're actually getting some lanes together, and the unit's actually starting to mesh a little, which is really exciting because of how young the line is.
Yeah.
Because I thought this was going to be a terrible year for them overall. But they've been doing a pretty decent job. I mean, the only issue I really have with the line right now is the left tackle and pass protection is pretty rough. Like, he was getting eaten alive by Myles Garrett yesterday. But the run game unit's actually coming together, and I think it's
good.
I think it's definitely a good sign for Najee for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Because I think it can only get a little bit better or stay the same. They've been getting a little bit better for sure.
Right. For just looking at like one of the reasons like I laughed at the Steelers for picking an RB in round 1, like given all the concerns that they have. I don't know. I think it was just a bad pick, but for fantasy, he's fine.
Well, I think for real life, he's been doing great. I mean, I don't remember.
It doesn't matter how good he is. It was still like he could be really good. Like, obviously, if he turns into like a Hall of Fame RB, it'll probably look like a good pick. But if he's like good or like pretty good, it's probably still going to be a bad pick just because you picked an RB in round 1 when the issue was like very clearly more than that.
No, I understand that. I'm saying like. They were showing some stats about it on the game yesterday about like how heavy he's used. Like he's the heart of the offense right now, and like I think he makes the Steelers' offense a lot better because last season they were by far the worst team in short yardage situations in the NFL, and now they're one of the best in like 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. And it's because of him. I think like he's handling taking away the problem. Yeah.
Really? That's it. That's interesting because you said the lines got a lot better. I think that I think just the run game being better has helped the team. I don't think, but like he's the running back though, right? I don't think it's like a Najee thing. I just think it's like a run game thing.
Sure, I mean it's a combination of both, but I think one obviously helps the other in both ways. But yeah, it's definitely it's good all around. It's just
I subscribe to like running backs don't matter. You could plug a lot of players in the backfield and have it work okay relative to like your opportunity cost.
Yeah, no, I kind of am I kind of align with that thinking as well. And I do think the Steelers' offensive lines helped a lot. But I guarantee you the Steelers' running game would be maybe, like if we had James Conner still, I bet he would, fully healthy, I think he would maybe do, as far as fantasy production goes, 70% of what Najee's doing this year. Maybe.
Right, just because the opportunity share is so crazy that just doesn't end up as an RB1, like, no matter what kind of talent, as long as like the goal line works there, the receiving works there, and the opportunity show, you'll end up fine for fantasy. But like, what happens if the Steelers, instead of drafting Najee at the 25th pick, 25th or 24th? 24.
24,
PTM
yes.
just picked it.
I
And
think
what if instead of doing that, they pick a lineman and then pick someone else like later in the draft? Like, what if they go like, I don't know, like Ramondre Stevenson in round 4, right?
See, I don't like during the draft. I mean, I wanted Najee, but
Yeah.
I was also fine with an offensive lineman. But looking back on the board, I don't think there was anyone there, like relative to where the way the draft fell. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it would have shaken out very well for them. Like I
Mhm.
think if they, let's say they took a tackle in the first round, I think the best one available was the guy who went to the Bears. What's his
Yeah,
name?
Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah, Tevin Jenkins.
He's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people that like, I don't do O-line, but like a lot of people that do really liked him. I think
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know he did. I'm just saying, like, so he would have got like Tevin Jenkins, and he would have been a good pick. But I think he was more of an early second rounder than a first rounder, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And then second round, by the time the Steelers came back up, Javante was gone.
Yeah, obviously.
ETN were gone. So like all
Right.
the top guys were kind of off the board. So then they would have had to settle for somebody, along the lines of like Kenny Gainwell or that
Not
kind
Gainwell,
of.
he doesn't fit the. You
What'd
could
you
go not Gainwell. He's more of a receiving back, but you could go with a guy like you go with a guy like Ramondre or something, and or like
Ramondre, like Trey Sermon.
Sermon or like anyone. Like the whole idea is like really just do whatever you can plug in back there should work fine relative to like what you would get from like investing a high pick in it. But that's
Yeah,
just
Let's move on though, Jacob. Real quick,
is Ben their biggest weakness? Yes, it is.
I feel like the team knew that Ben was their biggest weakness, and RB is the best pick for Ben when you have a good line already. That's ultimately why I think they took a running back, is because
Mhm.
Ben threw the ball like 50 times a game last year, and he still does throw the ball a lot. But what he was doing last year was like terrible, terribly unsustainable. And going into the season again with James Conner and Benny Snell with the bad offensive line could have been a nightmare, in my opinion. I think they needed to fix it immediately, so that's why they took the precaution.
I think that I believe his ADOT is higher or something. Time to throw higher. What is it? I would expect it to be. I'm not gonna check it right now, but
I don't know. It might be. I mean, their ADOT as an offense is still pretty low, in my opinion. Like they do
makes sense. You throw to Deontay in the RB.
Yeah, one of their more fatal flaws has been throwing the ball short of the chains on like 3rd and long, which is really annoying.
Hilarious. Yeah, that's the way to kill your offense. That's why
they've been getting better about it. The RPO has been really good for the last couple of weeks, but
that's why everyone complains about the Vikings.
What about them?
That they throw this ball short of the stick so much, and they're so cowardly.
Yeah, I mean that's the way the Steelers play. I mean, I don't know if it's the scheme or Ben or a little combination of both, but it's interesting to see for sure. All right, let's move on though to our last category here. Biggest breakout. I mean, there's a lot of guys you could pick for this one. I think a dark horse would be Michael Pittman. But my pick has been Deebo Samuel.
Debo's been good.
Debo's eating, man. He's been
Hurts.
Hurts.
Breakout, like as in they've never produced before, or like you could, because if not, you could say Stafford. He's been a top 5 QB before, like top 12 before, but relative to preseason expectations, he's broken out well in the new offense.
What about Leonard Fournette too?
Yeah, Fournette's been great.
He's been really good. They've been using
opportunity king, receiving, relegated Gio and Rojo to the bench. It's been
crazy.
Good opportunity. Sure, Elijah Mitchell
for sure as well.
He's running really well.
Well, he's a rookie though. I view breakout at Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell's a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't view rookies as breakouts really, just because I haven't seen them play before.
I guess it's still. I think I get what you're saying is like they're not breaking out; they're just stepping into the league and like playing well from the get go, right? It's not like
they are breakouts, but you know what I mean. Like what I'm thinking for this.
Or then like, all right, how about like Joe Burrow?
Like Joe Burrow?
Yeah, Joe Burrow's breakout has been terrific.
Yeah, it's been really good. But dude, okay, that's why I saw all the signs for that. That's why I kept doing the Burrow over Herbert fantasy take, but it hasn't really converted to fantasy success very much so far, unfortunately. He doesn't run.
Really? Are you sure?
Burrow's good, but he hasn't. I don't think he's.
They're within like 1 point per game.
Are they? Look.
Yeah. Your take has a very good chance of shaking out well. If you want to victory lap it, you can manipulate the stats and say that he has a higher points per game rate. Like not higher points per game. He has more points. But that's just because
But he's played one less game.
Exactly. You can ignore that if you want to manipulate it, but
Hey, but the average, I mean, dude, they're damn close.
If you want to just look at it like even,
Yeah,
they're really close in points per game. Like,
for how hot of a take it was and still is. I mean,
I don't think it should have been that hot.
A 1.2 points per game difference. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
I wasn't as on.
Was it Burrows? Well, Jacob, Chase being added is why I was.
So you expect the breakout, right?
Yeah,
just because you had a really good player, you end up with a good QB.
Yeah, one of my main talking points for Burrow's breakout was the addition of elite wide receiver. We saw it happen with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah. It's a huge trend, in my opinion, for the young quarterback to add an elite weapon and take the step forward. I think it's a big trend to watch for.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Where's trying to look on this chart for completion percentage over.
Another hot take that a lot of people did not like before the season that I think is actually going to finish correct is Najee outscoring Aaron Jones.
That's a viable. I took in the league we're in together. I took Aaron Jones over Najee.
You absolute buffoon.
I remember talking
he's
to
he's outscoring the season.
I don't remember which of the two it was. I believe. I don't remember. I think it was Michelle. But I was talking to her, and she was just I was like, yeah, I don't. Just looking at the profile, I don't really like Najee as much. And she was like, no, for redraft, he's going to be insane because the opportunity share is.
Yes, that's what I was telling you.
And then it is.
I tried telling you, Kosh. The opportunity is insane, bro.
Yes.
It's insane. I don't care if he's inefficient. The opportunity is insane. And he has
your take for Burrow being better than Herbert right now, minimum of 112 plays, which is like 7 games, like 16 times 7. Burrow is 9th in completion percentage over expected, and Herbert is 28th.
There we go.
Herbert has had a really, really, really bad stretch of like 3 games. That is like plummeted. All of like a bunch of efficiency metrics, a lot of like PFF grades, they've just been falling. So
there we go.
Yeah.
Let's clap for that. Joe Burrow's better.
Yeah.
Thank you
and
so
then
much.
Looking at PFF passing grade, he's also going to be higher just because Herbert's been bad the last few games. Right now, Burrow is 8th and Herbert is 9th.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I still today would rather have Justin Herbert as my NFL quarterback than Joe Burrow. I would.
Yeah.
But
would you?
I would. Yeah. If you were a GM, would you rather have Joe Burrow? I would rather have Justin Herbert personally.
Maybe. As rookies, they were both I got on the Burrow breakout train pretty late, just because
you bastard, you should have been on it since June like me.
I know, because DF Bean Counter, right? My boss Drew. Yeah. He helped show me the way on Burrow.
Good. And, Joe Burrow's good, man. He's got good weapons.
But yeah, if you look at last year, they were both like not like neck and neck, but they were both really good. Like Herbert had like a PFF passing grade of 78, and Burrow's was 74, and that's both really good. It's like relative to other rookies, that's like elite. Because right now, if you look at the rookies this year, I believe they're all bad. It's like Fields has a 52, Lawrence has a 57, Zach Wilson has a 57, Lance has a 58, Davis Mills has a 59, and Mac Jones.
Mills.
Yeah.
Davis Mills season.
Mac Jones has an 81. Can you believe it?
Huh? Oh yeah, what about Mike White?
Oh man, I don't know. No wait, he was drafted in like 2017 or 2017.
You just asked me about Mike White. What's he graded?
Mike White. The only reason that he is on the Jets right now is because Cooper Rush beat him out in 2019 Cowboys training camp.
Dude, he actually did not look terrible.
They both had pretty good games.
I actually didn't get to watch that much of the Cowboys game yesterday.
No, what happened? You didn't watch?
No, I watched like the first half. I forget what happened. I was doing something later.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
I fell asleep apparently. I reportedly fell asleep. Anyways, did you know that that Najee is currently the RB3 in points per game right now? It's crazy.
That's not surprising. He was like
my boy.
He was right there before, right? Makes sense.
Yeah, I think he was like top 5 before. I think he was like RB6 in points per game. Dude, he's been so consistent though. Like he hasn't finished a game with under 21 points in like the last.
Exactly. He's that. I off the top of my head, it's like 4 4 to 5 or more like targets in every single game, plus a ton of
Yeah, actually, you know what I love?
red zone work and goal line work.
You know what I love this week? He only had 3 targets and he finished with like 21 points.
What do
That's
you
what you love to see right there. You'd love to see that. But anyway, man, I think that's pretty much a wrap for what I had prepared. So if you want to get into some of those expectations for the rest of the season, if you want to hop into those, or if you want to wrap it,
yeah, we can just talk about anyone. You want to talk about any player you like, and just Najee had a pretty good game last week. Like,
what do you? Okay,
huh?
Let's hit on 3 players that we think are gonna have a really good rest of the season that maybe have had a bit of a slow start or things haven't really come together for them yet.
Did you know Daniel Jones is 7th in expected points per game and Derek Carr's 9th?
I actually do. I think Daniel Jones is going to have a big game tonight against Kansas City.
That he could. It's a bad defense, and he has Konami code. I dropped like Rashad Bateman to pick him up in one of the leagues where there's no benches because Dak missed the game, and it was like a late call, and I had to drop like whoever was on bye. So that sucks. I hated to drop Bateman, but Jones can play well tonight, and the sneaky Konami code, and people only think it's sneaky because he's white. Can admit that right now. But
dude, I love me a running quarterback for fantasy.
I know.
Speaking of running quarterbacks for fantasy, let's hop into this just for a second. Okay, we had something from Jacobs here. Not Jacobs.
Did you know that? Okay, so
Brandon Cooks with Tyrod Taylor playing was averaging 100+ yards and a touchdown. That's true.
He was.
Two quarterbacks to watch for in the rest of the season here. We got Taysom Hill is very interesting to me. Taysom Hill is very interesting for fantasy in my opinion. And so is Tyrod Taylor.
I was just about to say those. Like
Tyrod was cooking.
I'm looking at my sheet right now, and like right when I started talking about sneaky Konami code, I sorted by rushing expected points, and Taysom Hill like shot almost to the very top.
Yeah. Let's just hit on those two real quick. Let's dive in deep to Tyrod Taylor and Taysom Hill, and we can wrap. Let's start off with Taysom first. I mean, Taysom Hill, in my opinion, I think he is I think he's a weekly starter for fantasy. I think he's gonna be a top 12 guy rest of the season.
Right. We have a pretty good indication that he's not a great passer.
No.
And that he is a really good rusher. And it's really just a problem with the volume, just because the volume with Taysom was so bad, and that that is really just relying on rushing, because you're not going to have passing efficiency and you're not going to have passing volume. So you're really relying on the rushing, but then you're pretty much plugging a guy who will rush decent amounts into your lineup. So I think you end up with a QB2, just because like I saw some people citing stats of like last year he's a QB1 while starting, but I think he had like 6 to 7 rushing touchdowns in those 4 games, which is pretty hard.
Josh, I'm gonna say, I think he's a top 12 guy, because I understand the concerns of the passing volume and everything like that, but he's going to get the rushing touchdowns. I mean, regardless, even if they get down the goal line and run some fancy packages with him. And
he definitely can. It's not that.
I mean, I think he gets at least a rushing touchdown a game, kind of. I don't know about at least a rushing touchdown a game. I'm a little bold, but like I think that he is very high odds of scoring rushing touchdowns. And if you're in a 4-point passing touchdown league, I mean, that gives him a big advantage too.
Last year, while he started, in the 4 games he started, he had 39 carries in 4 games. So that's like just under 10 carries per game, which puts him like top 5 in the NFL. It's now
time to trade Kamara. He disappeared with Taysom. No, don't trade him. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Probably not. Just looking at like usage is so important for RBs. We know he's a talented player, but like QB checkdown rate is real. Like some QBs don't throw to RBs as much, and like that's relatively sticky. It's more so like more sticky than like tight end or wide receiver targets, right? Just because like tendencies to check down. So if Taysom has less tendency to check down, which we have an idea that he is based on what happened last year, it can hurt Kamara's receiving volume. And then also you have a good rusher who might snipe touchdowns. It's not time to trade him, but I don't know. Like if Taysom plays for the rest of the season, you might not. It might take some of the ceiling away for Alvin Kamara, but he's still a talented player who gets good usage. I wouldn't be worried about him.
All right, just real quick, I'm gonna hit on Tyrod. So I mean, Tyrod Taylor was really good at the start of the season for fantasy. I think that he was actually coming into his own and really developing into a very good weekly fantasy option. I think he can probably continue that trend. I mean, I think Brandon Cooks gets another huge bump from where he is right now to where he's going to be because the offense is even scoring more points. I mean, if there's any other key metrics or anything you want to hit on with Taylor before we move on to another coming from Jacob here from a little while ago, actually, I want to talk about with Mac Jones. Anything you want to mention?
On the R Squared podcast with Ian, like I plug it real quick, like R Squared Fantasy Football Podcast, we talk about metrics every week, and the other week I was talking about Brandon Cooks being one of the better win now buys in Dynasty just because his target share is so elite. With Taylor at the beginning of the season, like it's only a 2-game sample size, and I believe he had like 50 plays or something, so it's not a great sample size to evaluate, but he played well. He was like I believe he was like top. He was 6th in completion percentage over expected, which is good. Normally he lives like in like an average range of like 20ish, but that's still better than Davis Mills, who right now is living around the bottom of the chart.
Who right now sucks.
Right. I said earlier his PFF passing grade is like 58 right now. He's like going from Davis Mills to Tyrod Taylor doesn't seem like a huge upgrade, but it's going.
Honestly, just real quick,
it's going from like a horrible. If you can go from
props to Davis Mills, okay, he hasn't been that terrible for a rookie thrown into a horrible situation. He's honestly not done a terrible job. I mean, he played very well against the Patriots that 1 week.
Yeah, he did. It's just not week to week. It's week to week. You're better off with Tyrod starting, and they confirmed he's a starter when healthy. So with Tyrod Taylor, you're getting decent passing or like serviceable passing with decent rushing. Like when he started for the Bills, he was a decent QB too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
let's wrap with Mac Jones here. I'm interested in this comment, Akash. What do you think about it?
Oh.
Mac Jones completion percentage. Anything to be interested for a breakout if they add a stud wide receiver for him?
Maybe not. I don't know. Like that's a big if. Like there's not a lot of stud wide receivers. Like you can draft someone obviously, or you can get one in free agency, but they just spent a lot in free agency on their weapons, and I think what they're doing with their weapons works right now. So like that's a big if that you can't assume will happen. His completion percentage right now, I think, is he's playing well, but his 8 out right now is 23rd out of 42 QBs. Hang on, let me increase the maximum plays so we can get out some of like the Mike Lennons who only threw.
While you're doing that, I just want to hit on. So for Mac Jones, I think he's been playing excellent so far this season. I think he's executing exactly what the Patriots offense should be executed as.
Yes.
He's been doing great, honestly. But for fantasy football, you're wanting a guy who has a big arm, has elite, dynamic playmaking ability, or you want somebody who has like the bit of a Konami code built into them.
Exactly.
And Mac Jones doesn't really do either of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best case scenario for Mac Jones ever would be like what we're kind of seeing with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers do right now, just have like a godly squad of wide receivers around him.
That's too high of a ceiling. That's
no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like that is his absolute like god level Mac Jones ceiling. Not gonna happen. Mm-hmm. I think his ceiling, relatively speaking, is like a good Kirk Cousins. Like QB
Kirk Cousins is better.
For fantasy. I think like QB 9, 10, 12 is like where he'll probably live at his ceiling around like
I think like Flacco or Carr. Like you'll end up with decent passing numbers, very little rushing ability, and you'll really be relying on the touchdown rate. Like touchdown rate's volatile year to year, so if you have him in Dynasty, you'll just have to hope that some years it's good enough to have him as a low QB1. But I think that's really the ceiling, just because what we've seen from him in college and the beginning of his career in the NFL is really close to zero rushing production, and that's what you need in today's NFL to get you to even like top 8 numbers. You'll need at least like 15 to 20 rushing yards per game, which is something that like sneaky rushers like Herbert and Tannehill, they can do that. They do that week to week, but a guy like Mac Jones probably isn't going to do that. So those extra like 1 to 2 points per game, it matters. It like relative to other QBs.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. All right, I think that's a good way to go out on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it, or listening wherever you are. Akash, any parting words for the people?
You should probably go buy Deontay Johnson, just because right now he's like, I believe he's 5th in expected points per game, and no one's treating him like that. So go ahead and go buy him because he is a terrific wide receiver who has a target share of 30%.
All right, I love it. I definitely agree. Deontay's a very talented player. He's getting a lot of opportunities.
Go buy him real quick.
I'll buy him. All right, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you again live on Wednesday night, and we'll see you again on Thursday at wherever you're listening. Thanks again, and we'll have a I can't talk.
Yes.
Have a good one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.